Yes, I know a major GitHub outage is going on right now, and I will probably cover that tomorrow. But in the meantime, here are 3 stories that broke within the last 24 hours that you need to know about, okay? First off, the Clop ransomware group is still out there and abusing their Oracle e-business suite 0-day, and there are still major corporations out there that aren't patching. This weekend's victims include Cox Enterprises, which is based out of Atlanta, Georgia. They're huge. 55,000 employees, $21 billion in revenue. They have all sorts of subsidiaries like Cox Media Group, Cox Communications, and you probably know some of their other brands like Auto Trader, Kelley Blue Book, and others. But anyway, the Clop ransomware group has claimed to have stolen 1.6 terabytes of internal data and pushed it all straight onto their leak site. So we're talking about financial documents, personal info, and all the sorts of goodies that they don't want you to see. They got owned hard. But on the other end of the spectrum, we've got Mazda, who barely escaped over the weekend. Clop listed them as a victim, which usually means the attackers got in far enough to stage an extortion attempt. But Mazda managed to catch the intrusion fairly quickly, patch their EBS flaw, and then force the threat actor out before any real damage happened. So no data stolen or any sort of operational disruption. Now, originally I'd be like, woohoo, kudos, that's fast, that's awesome. But no, let's not give them credit because this has been a vulnerability that's been active for quite some time now. And so patting yourself on the back for stopping an attack that should have never happened in the first place ago is fairly absurd. So I don't know, what do you think? Now, our next story is a bit of a doozy. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Morgan Stanley are all quietly confirming that a third-party vendor by the name of Citus AMC suffered a breach that exposed a ton of data tying back to their banking operations. So we're talking about corporate documents here, contracts, records. We're not talking about customer data or credit cards or anything like that, but still very high-value institutional data that an attacker might be able to weaponize for fraud or insider trading schemes, or even extortion in some instances. So this is what took me by surprise, though. Citus AMC is saying that this attack wasn't the typical ransomware attack, which should, raise your eyebrows, because what this usually means is that when the adversary isn't looking to make a quick buck, they're typically looking for information. And if that's the case, this changes my whole attribution theory. This doesn't sound like the traditional financially motivated smash and grab ransomware actor that we typically see. This smells like a nation state attack to me. With that said, FBI and other law enforcement agencies are already engaged here. So you can tell kind of what's going on, right? So anyway, here's what you should take away from this story, okay? Yes, this happened in the finance vertical, but this is very applicable to every vertical. It's really just a really bad reminder that you are only as strong as your vendor's security, and that's putting a lot of faith in your vendors. All right, now my last story today would have probably flown on the radar if it didn't happen to be my dental insurance provider, so take of it what you will. This is not what I like to call a info sexy story. So there's no ransomware or flashy extortion sites or anything like that. This is just a data theft story, but it's very applicable. Delta Dental has once again been hit. This time they're claiming 146,000 individuals have had their data compromised, potentially with a compromised email account that an inbox was able to monitor for well over a month. The usual stuff of nightmares was leaked here. So, name, social security numbers, and lots of personal protected health information. So I want you to understand that email compromise still to this day remains one of the most destructive but also underreported breach vectors. Regardless of the vertical, I think it's really good to be aware of this, okay? It's applicable to everyone. It's good in this circumstance that this was a fairly isolated situation, because this is what attackers do when they're dwelling within an organization. They sit there and monitor emails. This will ultimately allow them to pivot into third-party services by various methods like MFA challenges and password resets. So this could have been a much bigger story and a much bigger pivot point. And frankly, my gut is telling me we may have to revisit this story in a few weeks, so we shall see. All right, so that concludes the 3 major stories of today, Monday, November 24th. This is Andy Thompson. I'll be covering probably GitHub tomorrow. Signing off.